Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
Illinois State Police arrested Drew Peterson.
2 counts of first-degree murder.
We knew he was capable.
Everybody has me guilty.
Justice will be served.
He's the greatest dad in the world.
When a parent is accused of murder.
My nephews, their father's being accused of killing the mother. What does that do to a poor kid's head?
Who should get custody?
One of my big concerns is what happens to Drew Peterson's children.
Should the children testify?
These kids have got to be just in a whirlwind mentally and emotionally right now.
And can the kids recover?
It's scarring them for life. They're scarred.
It's so important that somebody steps up and gives some guidance and some structure. This is going to be a changing day in your life. I know things are tough out there, but we can do this.
Here we go.
I want you to get excited about your life.
4,
And ready, see.
Let's do it. We've been following the story of Drew Peterson, who is now in jail accused of the drowning death of his third wife, Kathleen Savio, and remains a suspect in the disappearance of his fourth wife, Stacy. Now, while the media focuses on the criminal aspects of the case, I am most concerned about what will happen to his children. What will happen if his 4 younger children are taken away from him? What are they going through and experiencing now that their father has been taken out of the home? Who will get custody if he's convicted of Kathleen Savio's murder and sent to prison? Today, I'm going to really try to answer these questions because it is so psychologically fraught with danger and challenge. And so many of you have been through a difficult divorce, and so you painfully know the struggles that Drew's children may be experiencing are issues that all children can go through when their family is ripped apart. So the advice we will give today applies to more than these guests. I urge you to analyze this dynamic in your family while watching the show today. Now, Anna is the sister of Drew Peterson's third wife, Kathleen Savio. She says she's worried about the psychological state of the 2 nephews she says she hasn't spoken to in 5 years.
The boys, my nephews, it's got to be horrible psychologically on these kids. They had a very doting mother and my sister, Kathleen. When she died, they took it tough, and then they got a new mom, they got a whole new life, and then she's gone. Now, their father's being accused of killing the mother. What does that do to a poor kid's head? I love them like they're my own. When she died, it was like I died, you know, and these are her kids. And I knew this monster had them. I just want to see him punished for what he did, for murdering my sister and ruining the lives of his kids.
Well, joining us now is Kathleen's sister, Anna, and her attorney, John Q. Kelly. Now, you're concerned what's going to happen to them and what they are being exposed to now, true?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, these kids are going through enough trauma. Losing one parent, especially your mom, that's tough. They were very close. Then they get another mom, they get Stacy, who, from what I've heard, was a great mom. She's gone. And then their father's accused of killing the mother. These poor kids, I mean, they're having their whole lives ripped out from under them, and they're not even 6, or they just turned 16, the oldest.
Why haven't you seen these children in 5 years?
Drew makes it so extremely uncomfortable. I mean, first of all, I can't stand looking at the guy. Every time I look at him, I get my blood pressure goes up to my head.
So you're having to go over there and sit in a room with the man that you believe
we have
murdered your
to
sister.
sit in the room. He has to listen to everything we say. We can't whisper. He's got to listen to everything we say. We can't take the kids anywhere. You know, I just couldn't do it. It was just too hard on me. I took my sister's death so hard. And to have to sit there, to be under his thumb and be guided on what I can say, what I can't say, what the kids can say. You know, I can't ask them, are you really okay? What's going on with you? They can't tell me.
Now, John, those 2 children were adopted by Stacy. Right. They were Drew's biological children, of course, but they were adopted by Stacy. So once they're adopted, does this family line, this branch of the family tree, have any right to those children?
Well, I mean, you have the bloodline. I mean, blood is thicker than water. This is, you know, Anna was the older son, Thomas's godmother. She was there more than Drew for most events. You can ask her. She was there for the birthdays, the school plays, the christenings, things like that. And, I mean, the right now is with the estate, Kathleen's estate. This is what Anna did. I was brought in, a new estate was formed, and that represents the two children, and that's where the legal rights are right now, Kathleen's estate.
Now, you promised your sister that if anything happened to her, you would take care of those children.
And that's why I'm here. I have traveled every venue I possibly could. I had many brick walls, but I'm going to keep going, and eventually I'm going to get through. It's been 5 years of no, we can't, or no.
Well, tell us again why you were having this conversation with your sister that if anything happened to her, you would take care of the children.
Well, she came over to my house one Saturday, middle of January 2004. She was upset. I don't know what happened, but she was very upset. And her mission coming over was to tell me, if anything happens to me, she goes, I'm not going to make it to the settlement, to the property settlement from, you know, the divorce. I want to make sure you're going to take care of my kids. And, you know, when somebody says that to you, you're like, yeah. I mean, I will. Of course I will. What's the matter with you? You think I would? And she goes, no. I want you to say the words. She's like, in my face. Say the words to me. Promise me you will take care of my boys. So I'm like, I promise I will take care of the boys. And I'm starting to think she is really scared. I'm like, what's going on? I'm okay. But she goes, I'll never make it. I will not live. And I want to make sure my boys are taken care of. Everything goes to them. And she shows me the suitcase, a briefcase. We had been making journal entries and legal papers and all kinds of stuff were in there. She goes, anything happens to me, don't worry about jewelry, don't worry about money. Take this, and I want you to get Drew because he's going to kill me.
And what was in the briefcase?
Tons of stuff. Financial stuff, legal stuff. She would document things that happened. You know, Drew did this to me. We had a fight about that. He hit me here.
Okay,
also,
this was after she had told you what he had done to her.
I mean, I knew what was in there because I had been there with her through all of it. You know, about when he beat her up and I took her to the hospital, when, you know, with the cops coming over to the house, all that was in there. And letters that we wrote together, like to the state's attorney, previous state's attorney, not this one. We wrote a letter to the state's attorney together. She came over to my house. We wrote it. And then there was a newscaster that she had wrote to. We thought media attention would help.
All right. John, will this be admissible? I mean, can there be a custody action brought if he goes to prison? I mean, because it's about the kids at this point, right?
Well, it is. You know, it's unfortunately you have a man where you have two mothers dead and missing and 4 orphans right now. And obviously he's in jail. He's responsible for it. And there is going to be an issue of what is in the best interest of the children.
Well, let's take a look at this. Yeah. When Drew last appeared on the show, he allowed us to talk to these 4 younger children who shared their feelings on living with their father.
What'd you do at the party?
We played lots of games and hide and seek. We had cake.
Yeah.
And overnight, I went from being a watch commander of an entire town to being a mother of 4. I gotta tell you, the mom job is much harder.
A lot of hard things happened. I had to deal with a lot. And despite all of that, I got through everything. I'm much stronger from it. He's more of a friend than a dad. And other times more of a dad than a friend. He's a great guy.
Does good things. You know, buys us cool stuff.
You in kindergarten? Yeah. You like school? Yeah.
I do a lot of hard things.
Want to go play? No? Want to just hang on to me?
Okay. Does this look okay to you? I mean, do you think he's been all right to the children? Do you think he's programmed these kids to think in a way that he wants them to think?
Oh, sure he has. Sure he has. Drew, he admitted himself. I mean, he's well-trained in that area of fooling people. And these are little children, very easily bent little minds. He tells them what to think. And what even Tommy and Chris, they're a little bit older. But he knows how to do all this. I want what's best for those kids. I want them happy, not just fed and with shoes and clean clothes.
Sure.
Mentally happy.
Earlier, I spoke to one of Drew Peterson's attorneys, Reem O'Day, who had this to say about this brainwashing allegation. Their fear is that he's brainwashing these children, and one of the key elements to brainwashing someone and I'm using that term in a lay sense, is to isolate them and keep them away from other points of view.
Well, I don't see that happening. The 16-year-old has the highest grade point average at his high school right now. They're teenagers, they're older, and I don't see how they can easily be brainwashed.
So you feel like at this point the children are doing okay, even in the midst of all of this turmoil?
Yes.
At this point, would you take custody of the children?
Absolutely, I would.
You would take custody of them and you would raise these children, do what you need to do?
Sure. I mean, they're my sister's kids. But if I had to pick the place I think they would be best, it would be with my brother, for the reason being, I already know he's a great dad. He's got kids of his own. They range from first-year college to just graduating grade school. They got a son. So the kids would be about the same age range, good school district, nice house.
Well, that'd be a lot to think about.
Sure.
All right, coming up, with Drew currently incarcerated, what will happen to his 4 younger children if he's not there to father them? If he can't be there, somebody has to step up and do it. We'll talk about that when we come back.
When Stacy comes back, instead of looking at this woman for abandoning her family, they're going to turn it around. And it's like, well, she wouldn't have left if you weren't such a bastard husband. What? We've told Anthony and Lacey that their mom's on vacation. The child care specialist spent time with the kids, and they said that was very age appropriate. These specialists all said I have the most well-adjusted kids on the planet.
Now, we're back in studio with Anna, the sister of Drew Peterson's third wife, Kathleen Savio, who says she worries how this ordeal has affected her 2 nephews' well-being. I mean, of course you would worry. Her attorney, John Q. Kelly, is here, as well as legal analyst and anchor of In Session's Open Court, Lisa Bloom, who's joining us via satellite from New York City. And a reminder that the issues being discussed today apply more than just to these guests. Many parents and children struggle to survive after experiencing the loss of somebody they love. I mean, it's really, really tough. Now, John, we've talked about the motive here, about why Kathleen was killed and what kind of financial impact this could have on the children, depending on who gets them. You say there's a lot of money involved here for a cop.
Well, sure, and you have to put it in the context of the timing, too. Days before Kathleen's death, Drew Peterson's pension information been subpoenaed, and he had been given notice to appear for a deposition on all his financial background. This was 3 days before Kathleen's dead.
Because she was going after his pension and some of those things in the divorce.
She was entitled to half of the $300,000 from the sale of the house. She's entitled to half of the $325,000 sale of the business. She was entitled to half of his $36,000 a year pension. He was having to pay her alimony and child support. We figured out at a minimum he netted about $500,000 the day he walked out of her house. Plus, who has a $1 million life insurance policy on their ex-wife? That's in play, too.
Right, so he had that in. So we're talking $1.5 million here.
More.
All right, Lisa Bloom is with us from New York. Lisa, when this gets to trial and this gets into a custody proceeding, is all of this going to get in front of the judge and the jury?
Well, absolutely, because in a custody proceeding, a judge is going to look at everything, all relevant circumstances. And I know that Kathleen Savio's family and Stacy Peterson's family have long wished to have custody of these kids, but they've not been able to do that when Drew was still a free man. Until he was charged, they just really had no opportunity to seek custody. Now that he's charged and behind bars, and if he stays behind bars, I think they're in a good position to try to get some custody rights.
All right, well, you've been following this case so very, very closely. So, I mean, who do you think is the most likely candidate legally to wind up with these children?
Well, I have to say that I think Stephen Peterson, who currently has the children, is probably a good candidate. I haven't heard anything bad about him. He's also a police officer with a wife and a new baby. He's had it and maintained a relationship with his 4 younger half-siblings. And the way the courts usually look at custody, frankly, is whoever is in possession of the kids, if they're a fit parent, usually is in the best position to continue because the courts want some continuity with the kids. I am very disturbed, though, that the Savio family members and that Stacey Stacey Peterson's family members have not had the right to visit without Drew Peterson lurking around in the house. I mean, that just seems wrong to me. This is blood relatives. They should have had the right, and they should continue to have the right, to visit their own nephews and nieces.
Well, I'm concerned, and John, help me out with the timeline here, because I'm concerned about what those kids are going through now. I mean, just one day, Drew is stopped on the street, arrest warrant is served, so he's gone. So the kids are at home. How long can this whole proceeding take before this thing gets to trial?
You're probably talking a couple of years before there's ultimate resolution on the criminal case. And, you know, just he had made provisions for these kids ahead of time, you know, and to his credit, I hate to give many, but, you know, even when he was arrested, he made some comment about he should have returned the library books and things like that. He has consistently made a mockery of the murder of the mother of these two children, Thomas and Christopher, and that is just so wrong. And he's put them out in the national media, on television, as sort of his shield in front of them to garner sympathy. And, you know, ultimately we'll have to address the custody issue. We're not doing it right now, but just some of the things he does with the children, his inappropriate attitude towards his ex-wife who he murdered is just, it's reprehensible at this point.
All right, if this bail remains at $20 million, or even if it's reduced, through this wrongful death lawsuit that you have, you intend to challenge whether he has any assets that are free to commit to the bail, correct?
We've already stated, we've sent in a letter to the court. We already stated our position that any assets that Mr. Peterson might have to post with the court are assets that belong to the estate. He shouldn't be allowed to post some, and basically he's looking to buy his freedom while he's waiting trial for murdering his ex-wife that resulted in him getting these assets.
So he's going to use what he got. If he did this, he would use those assets to get free from it. So now Anna says that she wanted to ask me two questions. One was if I have any advice on how to make Tommy and Christopher understand why you're filing this lawsuit, right?
That's true, yeah, because I'm sure they think I'm the bad guy. They were on TV, you know, when the wrongful death lawsuit came out, and Tommy, the older one, was going, well, I don't understand why you're doing this. I mean, my dad's a great guy, and why you want to take all his money away from him just to give it to me? I mean, he'll give me whatever I want. They don't understand why I'm doing this.
Because they believe that he's innocent.
Right.
And he's convinced them that he's innocent.
They think it's just about the money.
And he is innocent at this point until he's been convicted. I mean, I keep saying that, but I want to be fair about this. But your point is that they don't understand.
No, they don't.
And look, you know, this just may be, if your true interest is what's best for the kids, and I truly believe it is, then you're expendable. Maybe they're mad at you, but if you are able to get some assets that you can put in a trust for them, that when the truth comes out, as you believe it's going to, that he is guilty, that's your belief, that he's guilty, that at that point you're going to at least be able to give them something for college, their future life, things of that nature. You're just trying to put something in trust for the kids.
That's part of it. The other part is just to bring justice and to have Drew answer for murdering my sister. The man needs to be accountable.
Right. And do you think that this is a valid lawsuit? I mean, do you think you've got a chance at prevailing with this wrongful death suit?
Well, I think so. I mean, obviously, the grand jury agreed with us. He's in jail, charged with the murder on $20 million bail, so there's merit to what we've said.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next, how does one explain to a child that his or her parent is deceased or has been murdered by the other parent? These are delicate things. How do you explain these things to a child? Now, it may be different in most situations where there hasn't been a murder or violent death, but the question's the same. How do you tell them that their world has changed in a big way? We'll talk about that when we come back.
We've left the house pretty much like it was when Stacy left. After the state police came in here and did a search, we feel kind of like a rape victim would feel, you know, dirty because they were in here violating my home. And I got a big chunk of rug cut up. We spilt red juice. And I had a little bit of a problem, you know, a forensics expert coming in and can't tell the difference between blood and red juice.
Imagine growing up with a father who is suspected of murdering your mother. Now, that might not be your reality, but it is the potential reality for 4 younger children of former lawman turned murder suspect Drew Peterson. Now, it is important to remember that the children might see Drew in a very different light because they're looking from a different point of view. Now, Drew's son, 16-year-old Thomas, and 14-year-old Chris recently spoke out publicly about their father.
Accidents happen all the time. I highly do not believe that my dad had murdered my mom because, first off, he wasn't there. He was with us during that period of time.
And then to hear everyone accuse your dad of killing your mom.
That's just making it even worse. Like, I'm seeing a lot of the world and a lot of the people's true motives.
What do you want to say to the public on behalf of your dad?
I want to say that he's the greatest dad in the world. Like, not a lot of people know that. People see the news all the time and see what everyone has portrayed him to be. But to our family, no one could ask for a better dad.
Well, joining us now is Michelle Borba, educational psychologist and author of the big book of parenting solutions. Now, legal analyst and anchor of In Session's Open Court, Lisa Bloom, is still with us via satellite from New York City. And we're also adding Ernie, the father of Drew Peterson's fiancée, Chrissy Raines. Now, guys, Michelle, I have so many questions for you. But before I get to that, Ernie, are you concerned that your daughter may be getting set up to marry Drew so he has somebody there to maintain control of these kids?
Exactly.
I mean, is that part of what's going on here in your view?
Part of what's going on. He wants to marry my daughter, so he's got somebody for the kids. And like he said, she'll be set up. I'll set her up.
Yeah. John, would that work? If he was married and so they had a stepmother, would she have standing in court custody-wise?
I don't think so. I mean, she wouldn't have legally adopted them at that point. I think the older children, you know, they're different families. I said different bloodlines, and I think, you know, Anna would be responsible for the 2 older children. You've got Stacy's family that would be concerned about those children. And then you have the interaction of how the 4 of them might need to be kept together as a unit too. So it's very complicated. And that Chrissy has a couple young children the same age as Stacy that may really complicate the mix in the pot.
Clearly would just be.
Sure.
Michelle, how do you work all of this out? I mean, you specialize in this. These kids have got to be just in a whirlwind mentally and emotionally right now.
Number one, for certain they are, and we know that for certain there's going to be long-term impact on them. The uncertain is what kind of impact that will be, because each child is going to be different. The single most important thing that these kids need right now is some kind of stability, that somebody can sit down and say, you know, this may have happened out there, but right now you're safe.
Well, what we know, of course, is that when children go through a divorce, a dissolution of a marriage, that all of their needs for sameness and stability and affection and guidance and consistency, those needs just become exaggerated. So the normal needs that any kid have are just really exacerbated for them right now, true?
Exactly. The other thing, what we know is that each one of these risk factors, these kids have had multiple risk factors up against them, but it's almost like a building block model. Each one of those risk factors makes it more and more traumatic unless somebody puts something positive in its place. And that doesn't seem to be the bottom line that's happening right now.
Yeah, and if Ernie's daughter, Chrissy, who is the fiancée of Drew Peterson right now, were to be pulled into this, I mean, are her children in the house? Have they met them? Have they played together, been together? That's what I mean. Yeah. They've been inside the house, right?
Yes,
they've played together, lived together, eaten together.
Yes, they
so her kids are being impacted by this craziness as well.
Yes. Yes, and so the number one thing right now is somebody better go best interest of the kids, because the red flags are going up by leaps and bounds. So what we need to do, and number one, is figure out who's going to be custodial care. It seems like Stephen, in this case, is the one who, at least the children have some sense of trust and security. You've got 2 older kids who at least have a support system of a school that they feel secure in that school. They've got teachers in that school, and they seem like they're honor roll kids that have got sports and athletes going.
Anna, do you trust this, Stephen? with your nephews?
You know, I think Stephen would always take care of the boys. I just hope he would not bar us from seeing them, but I think he loves them and he would do the best he can. And he's stable.
What's the biggest risk factor if these kids remain in this crossfire here?
Well, the biggest risk factor right now is that complete depression, anxiety, and aggression are the three that seems to be when we look at parents of children who are incarcerated. By the way, 1 out of 43 kids do have a parent behind bars. Wow. So we're looking at those are the issues that you've got to watch for.
All right, so depression, anxiety, and an aggression where they start acting out.
They start acting out, or they can hold in and they can start pulling back and withdraw.
Yeah, which is equally bad, for them. So what happens if Drew's children have to testify at trial? How will this affect them? And do they really have a clear view of what's going on here? We'll talk about that when we come back. There have been some serious allegations made about Drew and how he's handling these children. What kind of father is Drew Peterson?
He is a caring, loving father. In court, he said, whatever happens, the most important thing is that my children are okay.
Do you guys have a position on what you think final custody should be if Drew goes to prison?
The children right now are with the custody of their older brother, Stephen. Stephen is a police officer. I think that the best position for them would be with Stephen, and that's what Drew wants, and that's what the children actually would like.
We're discussing today the behavioral and psychological consequences that Drew Peterson's 4 younger children could face as a direct result of this tragic case. Now, I mean, clearly, kids that go through a divorce, the dissolution of a marriage, the fracturing of a family, it's tough. You add to it media scrutiny, add to it violent death allegations. I mean, all of these things are so tough for adults. Can you imagine for children? Now, Kathleen Savio's sister, Anna, is here, legal analyst Lisa Bloom, educational psychologist Michelle Borba, Anna's lawyer, John Q. Kelly, and the father of Drew Peterson's fiancee, Chrissy, is here, Ernie. And you're very concerned about your grandchildren being caught up in this mix. I mean, Michelle, what would you say to his daughter? You know she's watching this show right now. She has these young kids. You say at some point people have to step up and say, you know what? My emotions, my agenda goes by the wayside. I'm putting the kids first. What do you say to her?
Well, that's the first thing I always say is fast forward and think about the impact of this is going to have on your particular children. I think, though, when she starts watching a trial, she may have a different point of view in terms of
That's
start to
what I'm
see.
hoping.
Yeah, you're hoping on that one.
Yeah, Lisa Bloom, if these children are put on the witness stand at trial to be character witnesses for their father, what's been your experience of how much credence a jury is likely to put on that?
The jury's going to listen to those children. Thomas, in particular, who's 16 years old, is almost of legal age as an adult, and so he'll get a lot of credibility. But he was 11 years old at the time of his mother's death. Now, he says he's an alibi witness. I assume that means he's going to say Drew was with him the entire time. I mean, really? Drew couldn't have snuck out and gone nearby in the neighborhood where Kathleen was and taken her life and come home when Thomas was sleeping? I mean, I think that's a little bit hard to believe. And if I may just quickly to Ernie Raines. Ernie, I have some good news for you. Drew can't marry Chrissy because he's still legally married to Stacy, and my sources are telling me he's not making any moves to effectuate that divorce. He talked about it some months ago, but that's all on hold now that he's been arrested.
Amen.
Well, that's good news now that he's been arrested. Michelle, if in fact this older son has these children at this point, what's his to-do list to make sure these kids have the best chance?
Number one is keep things as stable and as normal as possible for them. The routines keep going, the continuity of care keeps going. Number two, he needs to take care of himself as well. Because when we look at parents who are now step up to the plate in custodial guardianship, what they discover is very often the kids who are now in this family look to that person and feel a lot of guilt because that person is stepping up to the plate and that person's under emotional distress. It feeds to the kids.
Yeah. One of the things that I have to say, we just talk shop here for a minute, but one of the things that I see parents make the biggest mistake about, or those that step in when a marriage has fallen apart for whatever reason, is they do feel bad for what the children are going through. So they become rather indulgent with the kids. And really what needs to happen here is these kids need to be held to the same standards that they would normally. They need to do their homework, they need to be in bed on time, disrespectful behavior needs not to be tolerated. They need to see, hey, everything in my life is the same. I still have to be a good young man, a good young woman, and conduct myself reasonably. That's important.
Absolutely, because that's going to do the most important thing is it gives a safety net to a child as my life is going to go on. And right now, that's the thing that they need is that efficacy is we're going to get through this.
Yeah, somebody running the business of the family. And that's what your daughter really needs to focus on with her kids. They've been in and now they're out. Right. And then all of this is going on around them. She's distracted. Somebody needs to say, we're going to run this family the way it is always
Well, it's going to be me.
Yeah, and you may be the one that gets and needs to step up and do that. All right, next, I'm going to speak to an author who spent 7 days observing Drew Peterson interact with his children. His observations may surprise you. We'll be right back.
Stacy and I still had a very romantic relationship.
Drew, if you had a romantic relationship, how could she disappear and you not dismantle the world looking for her?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think I've done all that I can do.
Well, we're talking about how Drew Peterson's recent arrest and indictment of murder for the death of his third wife, Kathleen Savio, psychologically affects his 4 younger children. Now, while media attention focuses on Drew, what happens to his kids? They're just caught in this kind of crossfire hurricane. How are they faring during this tough time? Now, many people assume the children should just be taken away. But how do they feel about their father? Now, joining us via satellite from Canada is Derek Armstrong, author of Drew Peterson Exposed. Now, Derek says he spent 7 days observing Drew with his children during the research for this book. Derek, what did you see when you saw Drew Peterson with his children?
Well, first and foremost, they were highly disciplined. They would do whatever he said. He seemed to be a good father. They hovered around him a lot. They hugged him. Lacey, the youngest one, was a third leg to him, basically clinging to his leg the whole time I was there.
Right.
The older kids are very polite. When I first met them, I went to the high school with Drew Peterson to pick them up after school. And before he introduced them to me, they right away said, "Hi, who are you? How are you?"
I have to say, I have read your book, which I thought was an excellent treatise on this whole process. And it seems to me that you've done more research and drilling down on this person and the facts in this situation, maybe even more so than the prosecutors at this early stage. In your opinion, and I know it's just an opinion, did he kill Kathleen Savio, and is he involved in Stacy's disappearance?
My personal opinion has always been that he has been involved in those 2 cases. The only hesitation I had was the lie detector tests he took for me on the book. He kind of passed the Kathleen Savio, the lie detector test regarding Kathleen Savio.
Right. So that certainly goes for him. What do you think should happen if he goes to prison so far as the custody of these children? You've met his older son. You know some of the players involved. What do you think should happen here as far as custody?
Well, first and foremost, I think the kids have to stay together. They're very close-knit as a family. Tommy and Chris babysit the younger ones. They cook dinner for the younger ones. They're very, I'd hate to see them split up in any way.
Well, you say that Drew indicated to you that he put aside a large sum of money for Stephen to help with the kids if, in fact, he wound up in prison. Tell me what you know about that.
Well, I asked him, does he expect to be charged at the time? And he said, yes, I do expect to be charged. Then he went into how he had put aside $150,000 for Stephen to look after the kids in the event he did get arrested and found guilty.
Do you know where he got that money?
not 100% sure. I asked him, but he basically has the collective assets of life insurance policies, which are, of course, part of the motive in the Kathleen Savio case. He had the house fully paid off. He has his pension. He owned a bar. He owned a printing press as well, a number of businesses together with Kathleen initially. And, of course, when she was found dead, he owned all the assets.
Are you worried about those children if, in fact, he doesn't go to prison and they stay with him, or do you think they're safe?
I think he's safe with the kids. He loves those kids. I didn't even get a sense that if he was running or anything like that, that he would take the kids with him or use them as shields or anything like that.
All right, great. We'll talk more about these kids and what needs to happen in their lives when we come back. We're discussing the psychological effects of the Drew Peterson case and how it affects his 4 younger children. Now, obviously, this is a dramatic case. I mean, he's charged with murder of his 3rd wife. He's a prime suspect in the disappearance of his 4th wife, and kids are caught up in the middle of this. I'm sure your divorce situation may not have all of that drama, but I can assure you from the kids' point of view, it can be just as scary for them as it is for these children. So we're talking about what needs to happen. And as you've said, Michelle, the number one thing is the adults need to be good fiduciaries and put those children's interest ahead of their own.
Number one, for sure, because that's feeding straight down to the children. Number 2 is constant reassurance to those kids. This is a scary thing when they're dealing with a violent scenario. Number 3 is keep their lives somehow private in an enormously public domain. One of the things I love was reading about O.J. Simpson. When the supermarket tabloids were there, those people in the supermarkets were so concerned about the kids, they covered those up with cardboard to make sure that those kids, when they walked in, O.J. Simpson's little kids, didn't get that feeling, and they were safe.
All right, what do you recommend as the best thing to say to these children? We have the 2 younger children of Stacy. We have, I mean, obviously, Kathleen's kids know that she is deceased. They've been to the funeral. They know that. What should he be saying to these younger children that he had with Stacy? He said, you know, she's on a vacation or she's gone. She's not coming. What should he say?
I'm concerned about the vacation and she's gone. She's never, because then the kids are wondering, why isn't she coming back to me? Their feeling of abandonment is unbelievable to a child. And so you almost have to get to the point of, I don't know why she's gone, but we're loving you the way you are right now. We'll keep it up. And that's the mantra you need to keep going.
Could that explain why Lacey has become so clingy?
Clingy. That's exactly what happened, because what happens is that those children, the younger ones, they don't have that feeling of attachment. That's gone, so they need to reattach with someone. They don't understand, and so they latch on, and you see the fear factor in that little girl going way up.
You know, I've said so many times that I just think it is so important that we recognize that kids have this unique ability of filling in ambiguous things to their own detriment. They figure out how it's my fault mom's gone. Yes. It's my fault this violence has taken place. It's my fault that my dad's in prison. I mean, so many kids can figure out in the way they withdraw that things are their fault. And I hate that, which is why you say they need constant reassurance. Anna, you said you haven't really been able to sit down with your nephews in 5 years. With their dad out of the home, they may be watching this show.
Yeah.
What do you want to say to them right now?
I would love to see you guys, talk to you, if not in person, on the phone. Me, my Uncle Henry, any of us. I mean, and Chris, I gave you all my phone numbers when I saw you last time. My house phone, my work phone. You know, just would like to talk to you guys, let you know that we're here. We're here, we love you, we want the best for you. We're not trying to rip you out of Stephen's house. We want what's best for you guys. We want you to understand that we love you. We're not trying to grab you and keep you. You know, if it's working well, then that's great. You know, and I think it's important that all four of you stay together, and if that's possible, that's great too. Whatever is the best for you guys, but we would like to have a relationship.
Lisa, we have 30 seconds here. Is there likely to be a custody action undertaken during the pendency of this murder trial?
I think there very well could be, because this is a new opportunity for both Kathleen and Stacy's families to try to connect again with these children. Both of these sets of children have lost their mothers. Now they're potentially losing their father if Peterson goes to prison, maybe for the rest of their lives and the rest of his life. So this is a good chance for them to get in there and love these kids.
Tough for the kids any way it's cut. We'll be right back. Well, thanks to all my guests today, and I'd also like to thank legal analyst Lisa Bloom, Michelle Borba, author of The Big Book of Parenting Solutions. And if you're up against the wall, that's a book you want to read. Also, Derek Armstrong, author of Drew Peterson Exposed. You can go to drphil.com for more information about what we talked about today, and understand what we're trying to do is talk about what kids go through and need when their family is pulled apart for whatever reason. They all have needs, and they get exaggerated during those difficult times. Thanks for being here.